You had 90 seconds to verify that passport, Alana Pierce said, her voice calm as the torn identification page slid across the steel table. You chose to destroy it instead. Officer Brett Callahan looked at the two halves, then at the black woman standing across from him in the airport secondary inspection room. He did not apologize. He smiled. People carrying fake documents always have a story. The fluorescent lights hummed above them. Cold air moved through the windowless room, lifting one corner of the damaged passport before it settled again beside the scissors in Callahan's hand. Alana did not reach for it. She did not raise her voice. She only looked at the digital watch beneath her coat sleeve. 1 minute and 56 seconds remained. If stories about courage, justice, and hidden truth matter to you, subscribe now, because the officer who had just destroyed her passport had no idea what he had actually placed on that table. Callahan leaned back against the counter as though the room belonged to him. His Navy Airport Police uniform was neat, his badge polished, and his body camera pointed directly at Alana. Beside the door, Officer Luke Bennett stood with his hands near his duty belt, watching the torn passport with growing discomfort. She asked you to scan the chip, Bennett said. Callahan did not look at him. The photograph does not match. The photograph is 7 years old, Alana replied. And my hair was shorter. Callahan picked up one half of the identification page and held it beneath the light. Different hair. Different weight. Foreign entry stamps. You expect me to ignore all that? I expect you to use the reader sitting 3 feet behind you. The electronic passport scanner rested on a small desk beside the wall, dark and untouched. Callahan had never attempted to use it. He had not contacted Customs and Border Protection. He had not called the State Department. From the moment Alana stepped away from the international arrivals corridor, he had treated suspicion as proof. What troubled her was not his arrogance. It was his timing. She had landed from Brussels 22 minutes earlier after 6 weeks abroad, carrying one small leather bag and a passport marked with a microscopic security compound invisible under ordinary light. Only 4 people knew her flight number. Only 3 knew which terminal she would enter. Yet Callahan had been waiting outside the secure corridor before her plane reached the gate. Alana glanced toward the narrow window in the door. A man in an airport security jacket stood beyond the glass, pretending to read a clipboard. His name tag read Evan Price. He had been there when Callahan stopped her. He had also been there when the passport was cut. Now he was typing quickly on his phone. Alana checked her watch again. 1 minute and 21 seconds. Why was I selected for secondary screening, she asked. Callahan folded his arms. Behavioral indicators. Which ones? You seemed nervous. I asked where baggage claim was. Bennett lowered his eyes. Callahan's smile disappeared. You are not in a position to question procedure. Alana looked at the scissors, the torn passport, and the untouched scanner. This was not procedure. Through the window, Evan finished his message and looked directly at Callahan. The officer answered with the smallest nod. It lasted less than a second, but Alana saw it. She understood then that Callahan had never believed the passport was fake. He had destroyed it because he knew exactly what it contained. Alana kept her attention on the narrow window in the door, where Evan Price had already stepped away from view. The movement confirmed what Callahan's nod had suggested. This was not a careless mistake made by an overconfident officer. Someone had known she was coming, and someone had wanted the passport damaged before it could reach the federal team waiting beyond the terminal. Alana lowered her gaze to the torn page on the table. 6 weeks earlier, she had arrived in Brussels under a routine diplomatic cover assignment, carrying the same passport and a carefully controlled travel history. Her real task had been to follow a network that stole identities from immigrant women, altered their documents, and moved the replacements through airports using employees who knew which inspections could be avoided. The passport in front of her had been prepared as a tracking instrument. A microscopic compound had been placed along the inner edge of the identification page, invisible under normal light but traceable under a federal scanner. Whoever handled it without authorization would carry the same chemical marker onto their fingers, gloves, tools, or clothing. Callahan had touched every part of it. He had also used the scissors. Alana checked her watch. 58 seconds remained before the missed safety signal triggered an automatic alert to Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Hale and the Diplomatic Security Service team positioned inside the airport operations area. She had not expected to use that safeguard. The plan had been simple. Clear arrivals. Meet Nina Alvarez near baggage claim. Confirm which employee had been switching documents. Leave without attracting attention. Instead, Callahan had stopped her less than 50 feet from the secure corridor and brought her into a room with no public access. "Where is my bag?" Alana asked. Bennett looked toward a gray inspection bin near the wall. "Over there." "Has anyone opened it?" Callahan answered before Bennett could. "You are being detained. Your property is subject to search." "That was not my question." Callahan stepped toward the bin. "Then ask a better one." Alana watched his eyes. He did not look at the wallet, the clothing, or the travel receipts visible near the top. He looked directly at the interior seam where the memory card had been concealed. The reaction was immediate, too precise to be curiosity. "Do not touch the lining," she said. Callahan paused with one hand over the bag. "Why?" "Because you do not know what is inside." He smiled again, but the confidence no longer reached his eyes. "That sounds like a threat." "It is a warning about evidence handling." Bennett moved closer to the table. "You said this was federal evidence." "It is." "For what agency?" Alana looked at him, measuring whether uncertainty had become judgment. Bennett was younger than Callahan by at least 15 years. His uniform was equally neat, but his expression carried none of Callahan's satisfaction. He had noticed the unused scanner. He had noticed the missing dispatch call. Most importantly, he was still asking questions. "Use your department directory," Alana said. "Call the State Department Operations Center. Ask them to verify Alana Pierce with Diplomatic Security Service." Callahan turned sharply. "You will not make that call." Bennett frowned. "Why not?" "Because she is guiding the investigation. She is offering information we can verify." The ventilation system clicked above them, followed by the steady hum of cold air. Alana's watch vibrated once. 30 seconds. Through the window, Evan reappeared at the far end of the hallway. This time he was not alone. A senior airport police officer walked beside him, speaking into a phone. Alana recognized the face from the photographs Nina had sent from Brussels. Captain Douglas Reed. The name had never appeared in the financial records, but the pattern around him had. Every altered document had passed through a terminal under his supervision. Every internal complaint had stopped at his office. Callahan followed Alana's gaze and saw Reed approaching. Relief crossed his face. That expression told her everything. The officer in front of her was not the man in charge. He was the man buying time. Captain Douglas Reed entered the secondary inspection room without knocking. He was a broad-shouldered white man in his late 50s, wearing a command uniform with silver insignia at the collar and the calm expression of someone accustomed to having every difficult question disappear before reaching his desk. Evan Price followed him inside, then closed the door. The soft click of the latch changed the room. Callahan straightened immediately. Bennett did not. His eyes moved from Reed to Evan, then to the torn passport on the steel table. "What happened here?" Reed asked. Callahan answered too quickly. "Possible fraudulent travel document." Subject became uncooperative during verification. Alana looked at the untouched electronic reader 3 feet behind him. Reed followed her gaze but showed no surprise. "You destroyed the document before verification?" Bennett asked. Callahan turned toward him. "I made a judgment call." Reed stepped closer to the table and examined the torn pieces without touching them. "That can be explained in the report." Alana watched him carefully. He did not ask for her name. He did not ask which flight she had arrived on. He did not ask why she claimed the passport was federal evidence. Instead, his attention shifted directly to the gray inspection bin containing her bag. "Search the remaining property," Reed said. Bennett hesitated. "We do not have a verified offense." "You have a direct order." Alana checked her watch. 18 seconds remained. The safety protocol would soon send her location, identity, and last recorded audio to Marcus Hale's team. Until then, she needed Reed to reveal what he wanted. "Captain," she said, "your officer already damaged the only travel document in my possession. Do you intend to search my bag without confirming who I am?" Reed looked at her for the first time. His gaze moved over her plain coat, travel clothes, and tired face with a cold familiarity that Alana had encountered many times before. He saw a black woman alone in a locked room and assumed the uniformed men around her defined reality. "People with legitimate credentials usually cooperate," he said. "People following legitimate procedure usually verify them." Evan shifted near the door. Reed's eyes flicked toward him, then back to Alana. "Open the bag." Callahan reached for the interior lining. Alana did not move. "The outer pocket contains my federal identification case," she said. "The interior seam contains protected material. If either is removed, this entire terminal may be placed under federal control." Callahan paused. Reed did not. "Continue." That word confirmed more than Alana expected. An innocent supervisor would have slowed the process. Reed accelerated it. Callahan pulled back the lining and found a narrow black sleeve stitched beneath the leather. His expression changed. He had been searching for it from the beginning. "There," he said. Bennett stepped closer. "How did you know where to look?" Callahan ignored him and slid the sleeve free. Inside was a small encrypted memory card marked only with a red evidence number. Evan took one step forward before stopping himself. Alana noticed. So did Bennett. "Nobody touches that card," Bennett said. Reed's voice hardened. "Officer, stand down. She gave us a federal contact to verify. And I told you this matter is under airport authority." Bennett looked at the damaged passport, the unused reader, and the memory card Callahan had located without searching anywhere else. His breathing slowed as the shape of the situation became clear. "There was no passenger alert," he said. "No request from Customs and Border Protection. No dispatch notice. Brett was waiting outside arrivals before her flight unloaded." Reed's face remained controlled, but Evan glanced toward the door. Alana's watch reached 0. A single vibration touched her wrist. The safety alert had transmitted. Somewhere beyond the room, Marcus Hale's team now knew she had missed the signal. "You should lock the hallway," Alana told Bennett. Reed gave a quiet laugh. "You are in no position to issue commands." Alana looked through the narrow window. Red indicator lights had appeared above 2 employee access doors at the far end of the corridor. The federal security protocol had begun isolating the terminal. "I was not speaking to you," she said. Bennett stepped toward the wall panel and pressed the internal security control. The door behind Evan locked with a heavy electronic click. Reed turned sharply. Callahan still held the memory card, but the confidence in his face was gone. For the first time, the 4 men understood that Alana had never been trapped in the room with them. They had been sealed inside a federal crime scene with her. The electronic lock settled into silence, and for one suspended moment, no one moved. Callahan still held the memory card between 2 fingers. Reed stared at the red indicator above the door. Evan Price stood closest to the glass, his reflection pale beneath the fluorescent light. Bennett remained beside the security panel, his hand lowered but his decision already made. Alana listened to the ventilation system and the distant movement beyond the sealed corridor. The federal response would be approaching, but the room had not yet become safe. "Place the card on the table," she said. Callahan looked at Reed instead of answering. That small act of obedience revealed the chain of command more clearly than any report could. Reed recovered first. "Officer Bennett, release the door." Bennett shook his head. "Not until her identity is verified and the property is secured. That is a direct order." So was searching a bag without a documented reason. Reed stepped toward him, keeping his voice low. "Think carefully about your career." Bennett's expression tightened, but he did not touch the controls. Alana watched the exchange without interrupting. Reed was using the only tool he still trusted, fear of losing status. It had worked on others before. It was not working now. Through the window, Airport employees had begun gathering behind the locked access line. A transportation security supervisor spoke into a radio while two customs officers approached from the arrivals corridor. The red lights above the doors continued to burn. "What exactly did you activate?" Callahan asked. "A missed contact protocol," Alana replied. "It transmitted my location, the room number, and the final audio captured before the alert." Evan's eyes moved toward the ceiling camera. Alana noticed the reaction. "That camera records high-resolution video," she continued. "Including the moment the passport was destroyed and the card was removed from my bag." Reed glanced upward. "Airport police control those recordings." "Not anymore." The words were quiet, but they changed the temperature of the room. Alana stepped closer to the steel table, stopping several feet from Callahan. "Set down the card." He looked at the small sleeve in his hand as though it had become heavier. "You said it contained protected material." "It does." "Then why carry it through a public terminal?" "To see who would search for it." Reed's face shifted almost imperceptibly. Bennett saw it. Callahan did too. Alana let the silence stretch. The torn passport lay beneath the white light, each ripped edge casting a thin shadow across the metal. "The passport was marked," she said. "The bag was prepared. The memory card was encrypted. None of it had value unless someone acted on information they were never supposed to have." Evan backed toward the locked door. Bennett turned slightly, blocking the control panel without threatening him. "Stay where you are," he said. Evan stopped. Callahan finally placed the card on the table. It touched the steel with a faint click. Alana did not reach for it. "Now step away." Callahan obeyed, though his eyes remained fixed on Reed. Reed's calm exterior had begun to fracture. "This proves nothing," he said. "A passenger arrived with suspicious materials. My officers responded." "Your officer knew where the card was hidden," Alana replied. "Your employee watched him destroy the marked page. You entered the room and ordered the search before anyone verified my name." Reed folded his arms. "You are building a story from routine decisions. Routine decisions do not require secret messages." Evan looked down at his phone. The screen was still illuminated. A notification preview showed a short outgoing message sent less than 1 minute earlier. "Package found." Reed's name appeared above it. Bennett saw the screen before Evan turned it over. His face lost the last trace of uncertainty. From beyond the corridor came the sound of several access locks releasing in sequence. Footsteps approached, measured, and coordinated. Alana looked at Callahan. "You thought you were destroying my proof," she said. "You were creating yours." The door indicator changed from red to green, and a firm knock sounded from the other side. The knock came again, steady and controlled. Bennett looked through the narrow window and saw 3 people standing in the corridor, each wearing dark federal identification jackets. At the center was Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Hale, a tall black man in his early 50s with a calm expression and a credential case held at chest level. Bennett released the lock. The door opened inward, and the air in the room seemed to change with it. Hale entered first, followed by 2 diplomatic security service agents and a Customs and Border Protection supervisor. His eyes moved across the scene in silence, the torn passport on the steel table, the encrypted memory card beside it, Callahan standing near Alana's bag, Evan beside the wall, and Reed positioned closest to the exit. Then he looked at Alana. "Special Agent Pierce, are you secure?" Reed's face tightened before she answered. Callahan stared at her as though the title had struck harder than any accusation. Alana kept her voice even. "I am secure. The evidence is not." Hale nodded once. One agent moved toward the table without touching anything. Another began photographing the room, the passport fragments, the scissors, and the placement of every person. The customs supervisor checked the electronic passport reader and confirmed that it had never been activated. Reed stepped forward. "This is an airport police matter. We encountered a traveler with suspicious identification and followed procedure." Hale looked at the torn page. "Which procedure authorizes destruction before electronic verification?" Reed hesitated. The document appeared fraudulent. "Did you contact the State Department?" There was not enough time. Bennett spoke from beside the door. She asked us to call. Officer Callahan refused. Callahan turned toward him. Luke, be careful. Bennett met his eyes. I am being careful now. The words settled heavily in the room. Hale opened his credential case and placed it beside Alana's torn passport. The seal matched the one hidden inside the identification holder still resting in the outer pocket of her bag. For the record, Hale said, Special Agent Alana Pierce is assigned to the Diplomatic Security Service. She entered this terminal under an active federal investigation. Callahan's gaze moved toward the floor. Reed remained rigid. Evan reached slowly toward his phone, but one of the federal agents instructed him to leave it where it was. He obeyed. Alana stepped toward her bag. The identification case is in the outer pocket, she said. Please remove it using evidence gloves. The nearest agent followed her instructions and opened the black leather holder. Under the white ceiling light, the gold federal badge and photographic credential became visible. Bennett read the agency name in silence. Callahan had mocked a badge he had never bothered to examine. Now he watched it placed beside the passport he had destroyed. Hale turned toward him. Why did you refuse to verify her identity? Callahan swallowed. I believed the badge was counterfeit. You had not seen it. No answer came. The ventilation system hummed above them. A baggage cart rolled somewhere beyond the corridor, its wheels rattling faintly across the tile. Inside the room, every small sound seemed sharper. Alana looked at the memory card. That device contains encrypted copies of passenger identity records connected to the trafficking network. It is useless without the federal key. Reed gave a thin smile. Then nothing was compromised. That is not what concerned you, Alana said. You wanted the list of airport employees tied to the document swaps. Reed's expression changed. Only slightly. Enough. Hale noticed. How would Captain Reed know such a list existed, he asked. Reed looked toward Callahan, then Evan. No one answered for him. Alana pointed toward Evan's phone. The message preview identified the card as the package. The passport was not destroyed because it looked fake. It was destroyed because the marked page could connect whoever handled it to the network. The federal agent beside the table switched on a compact ultraviolet evidence lamp. Pale blue light washed over the passport fragments. A bright trace appeared along the torn edge. Then the agent directed the light toward the scissors. The same trace glowed across the handles. Callahan looked down at his fingers. Faint marks appeared there too. The room became silent. Alana did not smile. She simply watched the truth emerge in a color no one could argue with. Callahan had spent the last several minutes trying to erase evidence. Instead, he had carried it onto his own hands. Callahan stared at the pale marks glowing across his fingers, and for the first time since Alana entered the room, he had nothing to say. The ultraviolet light made the evidence visible, but it also exposed something deeper. He had never been conducting a legitimate inspection. He had been trying to erase a trail. Hale turned toward the federal evidence agent. Photograph his hands, the scissors, the table, and every surface that came into contact with the document. The agent nodded and began recording each detail. Reed stepped forward. This is being misinterpreted. Hale looked at him. Then explain it clearly. Reed pointed toward the passport fragments. Officer Callahan believed the document was fraudulent. The compound could have transferred during normal handling. Normal handling would have included scanning the chip, Alana said. He never did. Bennett stood beside the wall panel, his face tense but steady. The reader was never turned on. There was no passenger alert, no dispatch notice, and no request from Customs and Border Protection. Callahan was already waiting outside arrivals. Reed turned toward him. You are speculating. Bennett shook his head. No, Captain. I watched it happen. The words carried more weight than anger would have. Reed looked toward Evan, but Evan had lowered his eyes. The federal agent near him collected his phone using evidence gloves and placed it inside a clear protective sleeve. The screen still displayed the message preview. Package found. Hale read it without touching the device. Who received that message? Evan remained silent. Alana watched his breathing change. His shoulders rose, then fell too quickly. He was trying to decide which lie would cost him less. The message was sent before Captain Reed entered the room, she said. That means Reed knew the card had been found before anyone here described it to him. Reed's expression remained controlled, but his right hand closed slowly into a fist at his side. Hale noticed. Captain, surrender your department phone. You do not have authority to seize it. This room is now part of a federal evidence preservation action connected to an active trafficking investigation. You may cooperate voluntarily, or the device will be secured pending legal process. Reed looked toward the open doorway. 2 additional federal agents now stood in the corridor, while customs officers kept airport employees away from the area. There was no path out that did not pass through them. He removed the phone from his belt and placed it on the table. The sound was soft. Final. Alana looked at the torn passport pieces beneath the white light. The photograph had been split through the center of her face. One half showed her eye, the other her name and nationality. Callahan had treated the document as though destroying it could make the person standing before him less real. Instead, each torn edge had become evidence of intent. Bennett moved closer to Alana. I should have stopped him sooner, he said quietly. She looked at him. Why did you not? He swallowed. Because he was senior. Because Captain Reed was coming. Because I thought following procedure meant following them. Alana's voice remained calm. Procedure is not obedience. It is accountability. Bennett nodded, accepting the correction without defense. Hale opened a clean evidence bag and placed it near the passport fragments. Agent Pierce, we will need your statement as soon as the scene is processed. You will have it. Callahan finally spoke. I did not know who she was. Alana turned toward him. You did not want to know. He looked at the floor. She continued, not raising her voice. Verification would have taken less than 1 minute. You chose destruction because you had already decided what kind of person I was allowed to be. The room fell quiet again. Beyond the glass, travelers moved through the terminal with rolling suitcases, unaware that a federal case was unfolding only a few yards away. Hale instructed the agents to separate Reed, Callahan, and Evan for interviews. Bennett was told to remain and provide a complete account. As Callahan was escorted toward the corridor, he glanced once at the federal badge beside the ruined passport. The badge had made him panic, but not because it gave Alana power. It made him panic because it proved she had possessed authority, evidence, and truth long before he had chosen to see any of them. The corridor outside the inspection room divided into 3 controlled areas within minutes. Callahan was taken to a private interview office near Customs Administration. Evan was escorted to a separate room, his phone sealed inside an evidence pouch. Reed remained near the glass wall under the supervision of 2 federal agents, watching airport employees pass beyond the security line without understanding why their captain could no longer give orders. Alana stayed beside the steel table while the evidence team documented the passport fragments. Hale stood near her, listening through an earpiece as analysts reviewed the alert package transmitted from her watch. The audio is clear, he said. We have Callahan refusing verification, Reed ordering the search, and Bennett objecting before the card was removed. Alana looked toward Bennett. He sat several feet away with his patrol cap resting in his hands. The younger officer had already surrendered his body camera, department phone, and access credentials. He appeared smaller without the certainty of Callahan beside him, but more honest. A federal analyst entered carrying a tablet and a portable scanning unit. We have a preliminary match, she told Hale. The chemical marker from the passport is consistent with residue recovered from the Brussels documents. She placed the scanner near Callahan's scissors. The screen displayed a bright spectral pattern beside a reference sample from Europe. The 2 signatures aligned. Hale's expression remained controlled. And the employee network. The memory card is still encrypted, but the automatic backup reached the secure server when Agent Pierce missed her contact window. We are opening the duplicate now. Reed heard the words from the corridor. His face changed. Until that moment, he had believed the physical card still mattered. Alana had seen that assumption in every order he gave. He thought controlling the object meant controlling the truth. The backup made the card only a decoy. You never needed what was in the bag, Bennett said quietly. Alana looked at him. I needed to know who believed they did. The analyst opened a file on the tablet. Rows of employee numbers appeared beside dates, gate assignments, and altered passenger records. Evan Price's identification number appeared repeatedly. Then Callahan's. A third number was listed under supervisory authorization. Hale compared it with the access card taken from Reed. The numbers matched. Reed stepped toward the doorway. Those records can be fabricated. One of the agents calmly asked him to remain where he was. Hale turned the tablet so Reed could see the screen. These entries were obtained from 3 foreign airports and 2 United States carriers. Your access number appears in every transfer routed through this terminal. Reed said nothing. The analyst continued scrolling. A recent message thread appeared, recovered from the automatic backup of Evan's phone. It included Alana's flight number, arrival gate, coat color, and the description of her leather bag. The final instruction had been sent from a device registered to Reed. Stop her before baggage claim. Recover the card. Destroy the marked page. Callahan looked through the glass from the interview room across the corridor. He could not hear the conversation, but he saw Reed's face and understood that the story had moved beyond denial. Alana felt no satisfaction. The evidence confirmed what she had suspected, but it also revealed how carefully the 3 men had selected her. They had known her name, her flight, and her assignment. Still, they had relied on the belief that a black woman traveling alone could be isolated, doubted, and controlled before anyone asked questions. Bennett stared at the recovered instructions. They told us there was a document fraud alert, he said. There never was one. Hale looked at him. Who gave you the assignment? Callahan. He said Captain Reed authorized it verbally. Bennett closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them. I never checked. Alana picked up the federal credential case using a clean cloth and placed it beside the damaged passport. That is how systems like this survive, she said. Not only through the people who give unlawful orders, but through everyone who decides verification is less important than obedience. The analyst's tablet sounded a soft alert. A final file had opened. It contained photographs of dozens of passports, each belonging to a woman whose identity had been stolen or altered. At the bottom was a scheduled transfer set for that afternoon in a restricted cargo office beneath the international terminal. Hale immediately contacted the airport response team. Reed looked toward the elevators beyond the glass, and that single glance revealed exactly where the remaining evidence was hidden. Reed's glance toward the elevators lasted less than a second, but Alana saw it. So did Hale. The federal supervisor touched his earpiece and spoke quietly to the response team. Check the restricted cargo level beneath the international terminal. Focus on offices connected to airport police access. Reed turned back toward them. You are reading too much into a look. Alana kept her eyes on him. You looked at the only route leading below this floor. I work here. I know the building. Then you also know why the transfer was scheduled during the afternoon shift change. Reed said nothing. Beyond the glass, 2 federal agents moved toward the elevator bank while airport security sealed the lower corridor. The terminal remained open to travelers, but the hidden machinery beneath it had begun to stop. Hale handed the tablet to another analyst and instructed her to preserve every recovered file. We have probable cause to secure the cargo office and all connected storage rooms, he said. Reed's expression hardened. You are shutting down an international terminal based on speculation. No, Alana replied. Based on passenger records, access logs, recovered messages, chemical evidence, and the instructions sent from your device. The calmness in her voice left him nowhere to hide. A few minutes later, Hale received the first update. Agents had located a locked office beneath the terminal registered as overflow property storage. Reed's access number had opened the door. Inside were document printers, blank passport materials, employee identification cards, and sealed envelopes labeled with arrival dates and gate numbers. No dramatic announcement followed. The truth arrived through Hale's earpiece in short, professional sentences. Each one removed another layer of Reed's authority. Callahan watched from across the corridor as 2 federal agents entered his interview room. Evan remained seated in the second office, staring at the sealed phone that had connected him to the network. Bennett stood beside Alana, listening as the final details were confirmed. They found Nina Alvarez, Hale said. Alana's posture changed. Where? In the cargo records office. She locked herself inside a document archive when she realized the exchange had been compromised. She is safe. Relief moved through Alana so quietly that only Bennett noticed. Nina had been the airline employee who risked her job to identify the document swaps. Without her, the network would have continued using vulnerable travelers as names on a ledger. She has the original internal manifests, Hale continued. They match the files on the backup. Alana looked at the torn passport on the steel table. The operation was complete. The witness was safe. The remaining evidence had been found. Reed could no longer claim the encounter was an isolated misunderstanding. Hale approached him with a formal expression. Captain Douglas Reed, you are being detained pending federal charges related to conspiracy, obstruction, identity document fraud, and interference with an active investigation. Reed looked toward Bennett. You let this happen. Bennett's face tightened, but his voice stayed steady. No, Captain. I finally stopped helping it happen. A federal agent instructed Reed to place his hands behind his back. He complied slowly. The restraints closed with a soft metallic sound, almost lost beneath the airport ventilation. There was no celebration in the corridor. Only consequence. Callahan was escorted from the interview room moments later. When he saw Reed in restraints, whatever hope remained in his expression disappeared. Evan followed under separate supervision. Alana watched them pass through the same hallway where they had expected her to be isolated and afraid. She did not smile. She did not speak until Callahan looked at the torn passport through the open inspection room door. You thought destroying the page would erase the evidence, she said. It only proved why you were waiting for me. Callahan lowered his gaze. Bennett remained behind to provide a complete statement and surrender every relevant report. Before the agents led Reed away, he turned toward Alana. This will not change the system. Alana met his eyes. No single arrest does. She looked toward Bennett, the analysts, and the sealed corridor below. But every person who stops obeying the wrong order changes what the system can protect. Reed had no answer. The elevator doors opened, and the 3 men were taken away as morning light spread across the terminal glass above them. By late afternoon, the international terminal had returned to its ordinary rhythm. Families gathered near baggage claim, business travelers hurried toward connecting flights, and announcements echoed beneath the high glass ceiling as though nothing unusual had happened. Inside the secondary inspection room, however, the steel table still held the evidence of the morning. Alana stood beside it while a federal technician placed each fragment of her passport into a clear evidence sleeve. The page carrying her photograph had been torn through the center, leaving one eye on one side and her name on the other. Hale handed her the open bag. Would you like to place them inside? Alana nodded. She lifted each piece carefully, not because the paper still had value as a travel document, but because it recorded a choice. Callahan had been given a scanner, a telephone, and time to verify the truth. He had chosen destruction instead. Now the torn passport would become part of the case against him. Nina Alvarez entered the room with a federal agent beside her. Her airline uniform was wrinkled, and exhaustion showed beneath her eyes, but she was safe. She held a sealed folder containing the original cargo manifests. I thought they knew I had copied everything, she said. They did, Alana replied. That is why they were desperate to stop the transfer. Nina looked at the damaged passport. I am sorry. Alana closed the evidence bag. You gave us what we needed. None of this was your fault. Across the corridor, Bennett finished his recorded statement. He had described every order, every hesitation, and every moment when he had allowed rank to outweigh procedure. Internal investigators placed him on administrative leave pending review, but his cooperation was entered into the record. Before leaving, he approached Alana without his patrol cap. I keep thinking about how little time verification would have taken, he said. Less than 1 minute, she replied. And I still waited. Then remember that waiting is also a decision. Bennett absorbed the words without defending himself. The next person might not have a federal team nearby, Alana continued. They might not have a hidden marker, a secure backup, or a badge powerful enough to make everyone reconsider. They may only have their voice. Bennett looked through the glass toward the moving crowds. Then I need to hear the voice before I trust the uniform. Alana gave a small nod. That would be a start. In the months that followed, Reed, Callahan, and Evan were formally charged for their roles in the document fraud network. The evidence recovered beneath the terminal connected them to dozens of stolen identities and illegal document exchanges. Nina's records helped investigators contact the affected women and begin restoring their legal identities. The airport adopted new evidence preservation rules, independent review procedures, and mandatory verification requirements for disputed travel documents. No policy could undo the humiliation Alana had experienced, but the changes made it harder for another officer to turn personal bias into official procedure. When Alana received her replacement passport, she placed it inside her desk beside the sealed copy of the damaged one. She kept the old fragments not as a symbol of what had been taken from her, but as proof of what could not be taken. A document could be cut apart. A name could be questioned. A person could be treated as though she did not belong. Yet truth remained truth before anyone recognized it, and dignity did not depend on the permission of the person trying to deny it. That evening, Alana walked through the terminal toward another assignment. Morning light had become a warm sunset across the windows, turning the polished floor gold beneath her steps. Her federal badge rested at her side, but she did not touch it. She no longer needed anyone in that building to understand who she was. The people who had tried to erase her identity had only revealed their own. And as she disappeared into the crowd, one question remained: when authority refuses to verify the truth, how many people have the courage to stop obeying and start asking questions?